You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. That is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. And she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
If you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
A bitch.
After several delays, multiple reshoots, and almost no end to controversies, Disney's live-action remake of Snow White is finally out. And well, we all said it was going to be terrible, and surprise, surprise, it was. This movie will go down as a footnote in history on what not to do when promoting a movie, especially for that imaginary, modern audience. We warned them that it wouldn't work when the casting for Snow White, who has been described as having skin as white as snow, was made into a Latina. We warned them that removing the dwarves wouldn't work. I guess they kinda listened to that one. We warned them that replacing actual little people with CGI monstrosities wouldn't work. But hey, at least Peter Dinklage is happy, I guess. And we warned them that letting their lead actress run her mouth non-stop, whether it be bashing the original film, her fellow co-stars, or over half the very country that she herself resides in and depends on. Time after time, for years we warned them, only to be ignored, harassed, attacked, and belittled as toxic at every turn. To the point where the internet just basically gave up trying to help and collectively said, okay, bring it on. The movie was doomed from the beginning, as people were already getting sick of lazy race swapping of iconic characters, as everyone could see why they were even doing it. Just for the DEI and representation purposes. And making Snow White, of all the Disney princesses, not white, is the absolute worst one you should try that with. It would be like race swapping characters in something like, I don't know, Harry Potter. If they took a character like, let's just say Snape, whose character is intrinsically tied to their appearance. Imagine if they just race swapped him of all people, you know? That would be really stupid. Not only did you race swap her though, but you hired the most insufferable person in all of Hollywood, inheriting the crown from Ezra Miller on her way. So, you know, good job there, Disney. Every time she opened her mouth, you could feel the money falling through Disney's hands. And after a failed run at trying to make her more likable, I guess, by having her do some interviews for places like Variety, eventually, even Disney had to admit defeat and basically told her,
Shut up, bitch!
And just canceled or majorly scaled back the premieres for this movie. It seemed like Disney may have learned to never let this woman speak with a hot mic when they couldn't control what shit would pour out of her mouth. But too little, too late. And now the movie is finally here. And of course, the only ones actually interested in it were YouTubers. So let's set a fire to this shit show, shall we? The movie begins with the birth of Snow White. Now, in the original story, it stated that she was named Snow White because she had
skin white as snow.
And of course, that was going to be a problem for this movie for anyone that had functioning eyes. So naturally, they are already changing their story to fit their new modern version. So now, she's named Snow White because she was born in a carriage while it was snowing outside. Yes, really. That's the reason they gave. Though actually, now that I've had time to think about it, I think it's totally normal to name your child after what the weather was doing that day. After all, just go ahead and ask my son, slightly cloudy. We see Snow grow up in a true representation of downtown Los Angeles. Sorry, I mean an accurate representation of a medieval kingdom, with just a splash of good old-fashioned communism for good measure. So Snow White's mother dies, and in comes Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot? Gal Gadot. Whatever. And since the good king hasn't gotten his dick wet in a couple weeks, and the fact that it's fucking Gal Gadot, he decides to marry her, thus making her Snow White's new mommy and the evil queen. And at her word, the king goes off to war and then he dies. So eventually, Snow White grows up into the most unlikable person imaginable, forced into servitude by the evil queen. One day, a man apparently breaks into the castle and steals some food right in front of Snow White. This is this version's love interest. Not a prince who stalks Snow White and sings a song with her.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
Nah, that's too scary for little Ziggles. So they went with a man breaking into her home and stealing from her. You know, because that's a lot less scary. Good job.
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated.
Get it? Disney women have opinions now. Woo! As the thief from earlier is caught and brought directly to the queen and princess for punishment, we learn that he is the leader of a group of bandits in the forest, and oh god, we are still getting these fucks, aren't we? As punishment, the queen wants him sent to the dungeons, but after Snow White protests, the queen changes the punishment to being stripped of his coat and boots and tied to the gates, left to freeze to death. I'm gonna choose to believe this was a scene Disney added later so the audience could relate Ziegler's character of Snow White to herself more, by also having her learning that sometimes you just need to shut the fuck up. See? Ziggles and Snow White, they're so relatable to each other. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say this here because Gal's performance is actually making me laugh out loud at times. And I don't think it's intentional. It's her delivery, the way she's trying to make her voice sound a bit deeper, and it's some exaggerated movement she does that just makes me giggle. She's trying though. Bless her little heart. She's trying. But it's rough. Zegler so far is fine, albeit some strange, lingering facial expressions, though every time they talk about how fair and kind she is, it just destroys any immersion I can build for the film because, well, we all know how Zegler really is. Every time they rattle off their new catchphrase, fearless, fair, brave, and true, to describe her, my eyes nearly roll out of my skull. So after the evil queen leaves Snow White on her own, she starts to sing a song, and I will give this movie a full 10 out of 10 right now if the queen leaned back into the room and yelled, "No singing." Alas, she continues with her I Want song, which is a brand new song for the movie about female empowerment and being who you are meant to be. Oh shit, sorry, wrong clip. Okay, so this song is about female empowerment and being who you are meant to be.
Wait a minute.
And you know what? I give Zegler a lot of shit, but the girl can sing. She's got a great voice and can really hit those notes. It's why they hired her in the first place. I mean, why else would they hire her? Her charisma? She has barely any of that. Star power? Only if negative star power counts. Because she looked the part? Yeah, it was just because she can sing. And she could fill a checkbox. But don't worry. After all this is over, I'm sure she'll have a great career in musical theater. Hollywood, on the other hand, no. The mirror then tells the queen that there is a new fairest of them all, and they quickly cut to the next scene of the queen hiring the huntsman to kill Snow White. And hold up, wait a minute, slow down. Somehow the queen immediately knows that the mirror is talking about Snow White. All it said was, "A lovely maiden I now behold awaken to the world."
Do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down?
This isn't an issue in the original story as the mirror actually describes her. And clearly, that wouldn't work for this version because we have eyes. So they just skip over it. But then again, this movie's version of fairest of them all somehow has multiple meanings, as fair in this version is meant to mean just and kind. And it's not just about your outer beauty. But the thing is, why would the evil queen give a fuck about who's the kindest? When she says fairest of them all, she's only referring to it based on looks, which is not what the mirror was talking about, as he was talking about kindness. But she just wants to be fair in the looks department, right? So why the fuck does she care? See, Disney, this is why you shouldn't fuck with the plot points this much, as it doesn't make sense. The huntsman takes her out to the forest to pick apples, but then she gives him an apple, and that helps dissuade him from following the queen's orders, because he sees that she is very kind. Whatever. I mean, it's something, I guess. He pulls a knife on her. Instead of running, screaming, or showing any sort of fear, she just stands there and asks him why, over and over. Zegler's a little wide-eyed, sure, but to have hardly any reaction when the knife is at your own throat, like, come on. I know we want to keep empowering women, but ladies, it's okay to scream for your life if you're in a situation that calls for it. Like the original did, because actual humans made that. The huntsman tells her to run and even drops a clue about her father's fate. But when she asks him about it further, he can't because...
Please, before I change my mind!
Huh? He says this like he's brimming with bloodlust, but it just comes out of nowhere, and he's only here to keep the king's fate shrouded in mystery for the audience a bit longer. And you know what might have been better if they wanted to change some things for this remake? Maybe they could have had the queen put a spell on the huntsman to kill her, and he is controlled by this spell, but he is able to fight it off just long enough to tell her the basic information, and she runs unable to ask more questions as he begins to lose control. That's different, but would still get the same points without some weird character decisions. It would even make the queen seem more evil and dangerous, and would give her an excuse later in the movie to just kill Snow White herself, as she can't trust that others won't be able to break the spell too. Though, to be fair, it would make that whole heart in the box thing a bit trickier, because if he's under a spell, why would he put an animal heart in there instead and say it's hers? Hey, I didn't say it'd be perfect, I just thought it would be better than before I changed my mind. Like, are you not in control of your own mind, buddy? But then again, it's not like the movie follows that heart in the box rule either, so what am I even worrying about? Snow White then proceeds to run into the forest. And remember in the original when this happened, they made it perfectly clear that the forest was creepy, sure, but it was just a normal forest. It wasn't actually alive and trying to get her. It just looked like it to her in that moment. The fear made her mind play tricks on her, which is a very human thing to do. How many of us have stared at something in the darkness that we were sure was coming to get us, only for it to be nothing? However, in this version, it doesn't seem like they got that subtlety, because it seems like the forest is actually alive and trying to get her. There's no subtlety here. The tree isn't just a tree that looks weird and then morphs into something else because of your overimagination. It just appears as some big lumbering creature trying to get her. They kind of do this later by showing how long it took Snow White to get used to her surroundings, but that just means a bunch of horrid CGI animals come out and smile at her. It's terrifying. They even lead her to the dwarves' cabin, and she immediately goes upstairs and sleeps in their beds. That seemed fast, but okay, pretty sure in the original they have her sing Whistle While You Work Here, but the filmmakers decided to swap those scenes because you can't have a woman cleaning up after men in this movie. They have to do it together. No longer does Snow White clean up their home in gratitude for her breaking and entering and crashing on their beds. Now she just barges in and goes to sleep and tells them to clean. Though I will say it was nice for the CGI monstrosities to lead her to the other CGI monstrosities. Maybe they'll eat her. Hopefully. So we're finally introduced to the dwarves, and oh my god, seeing these things around that corner singing an iconic Disney song sent a chill down my spine, and an audible ugh leave my mouth at the same time. And the overly long new rendition of Hi Ho doesn't do them any favors. I swear a part of what remained of my childhood innocence was destroyed in that moment. Every time Dopey smiled in the camera, I let out a shudder. Why not just hire actual little people for these roles? Because Peter Dinklage said it would be bad? Way to kick the ladder over after you've already climbed it, dickhead. I mean, I can understand people being pretty pissed with him now. I mean, imagine if this was any other minority group in a movie. Like, what if they replaced all wheelchair characters with CGI ones because someone would get offended? Isn't that dumb? But it's kind of what happened. 7 major roles in a big budget Hollywood production were just lost. That could have been a career-defining role for one of them. The next Warwick Davis or even Peter Dinklage could have been given a chance here. Alas, we will never know because Disney caved. They wanted to bring more diversity to their stories, but all they did was remove some.
Ironic.
Snow White meets the dwarves and hears more about the bandits in the forest who claim to fight for her father, the true king, and she agrees to stay with them for now, as the queen learns of Snow White's survival. And this time, the mirror does actually refer to her by name. But that's when the unthinkable happens. Gal starts singing. Oh god. I've said a lot of bad things about Zegler, but at least she can sing. That, on top of Gal's overexpression in her movements coming off as pretty humorous and campy, and I don't think they were meant to be, which makes it just all the funnier and sadder. This movie was reshot a lot, so maybe this scene was a holdover from a more campy version of the movie. I don't know, it just seems so out of place. I may seem like I'm trying to defend Gal here, but it's just because it's so funny. This is also the 3rd original song from this iconic Disney classic animated musical. And the only classic song we've gotten so far is Hi Ho. And even that was extended out with original lyrics on top of the CGI nightmare. So really it's more like 3.5 original songs. We're about halfway through the movie too. Are you having fun yet? After a bowl of porridge lands on Dopey's head, making all the other dwarves laugh at him, and he gets embarrassed and is upset by this, he goes outside to cry. And you know what? I'd be pretty upset for him if I wasn't so horrified by his mere existence. Snow tries talking to Dopey, who we learn is afraid to speak, instead of just never trying it like they said in the original. But she tells him about the joys of whistling, and that leads into Whistle While You Work. As stated earlier, when the original song is sung by Snow White, her and her animal friends clean up the dwarves' cabin as a thank you, and as a gesture of the work she can do for them if they let her stay. But here, nah. Even putting emphasis on
He'll use a broom.
Do you get it yet? Halfway through the movie, and we finally get a classic song. And let me tell you, if you thought Emma Watson staring at nothing during Be Our Guest was bad, it doesn't hold a candle to watching these 7 dwarves running around Zegler. It's just so bad. Snow White brings up again the bandits who may know something about her father and wants to go and find them. So she then leaves the dwarves. Yes, really. She leaves and is immediately found by the thief from earlier, and he starts singing. And I'm sorry, but what the fuck movie am I watching? Cause this just seems like a different movie started playing. She eventually meets the rest of the bandits, and hey, look, they got one dwarf actor. It's just so jarring they went from the dwarves to this in a matter of seconds. It's out of nowhere. They are soon attacked by the palace guards looking for Snow White. The thief tells Snow to run while they buy her some time. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that this is by far one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Because the bandits attack with sticks, rocks, and a slingshot. While the guards, it's stated in the movie, outnumber them 2-1, have armor, swords, and crossbows, but are held off by the bandits, who we learned earlier are actually just out-of-work actors. Sure, okay, why not? Do you think they were part of the Hollywood strikes? Snow, however, does come back, of course, to save them and trick the guards long enough for all of them to escape, except for the thief, whose name is Jonathan, is shot by a crossbow bolt protecting Snow White. So she takes him and the rest of the bandits to meet the dwarves. And for some reason, seeing these two groups on screen together just really pisses me off. I mean, half of them shouldn't even be here, and yet here they are. The movie's about to enter its final act, and who are these guys? Do we know them? Do we care about them? No. The answer is no. Because there's clearly more movie here that was cut out. There's a scene where Snow White talks to one of the bandits, and they make it seem like the two know about each other fairly well, talking about their love lives with each other, and it's just so jarring. She even refers to one of them by name, but we never saw her introduced to them or anything. This is not how characters are introduced in a story. And then she sings another song because she realizes she might like Jonathan because we saw him be nice to Dopey. And honestly, it just seems like they're using Dopey as that mentally challenged person that you feel you need to talk slower with and be extra nice to, you know?
Hi.
Hi.
What do you do?
I do the numbers.
Oh, good for you.
Him being nice to Dopey makes her fall in love with him, I guess. Because he's kind too. Woohoo. But they hear that the guards are getting close to the cabin, so the bandits volunteer to go lure them away. But before they can leave, Snow White gives Jonathan her necklace for luck, and then Jonathan is immediately captured and brought before the queen, who recognizes the necklace and now has a location to search for her. Good job there. All of that happened. Snow giving him the necklace, him getting captured, brought to the queen taking the necklace, learning of Snow White's location, all happened in less than a minute. I mean, what even is pacing, right? It just seems like such lazy writing here, because the only reason she gave him the necklace is so that the queen can then recognize it. Disney knows people are struggling to pay attention, so they need to relay information as fast as possible before people start dozing off. So the queen decides to deal with it herself, dons her iconic old woman disguise, makes a poison apple, and is off. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Snow White is saying goodbye to the dwarves again? She's leaving again? That whole 15-minute side quest with the bandits was just a huge waste of time. But before she can even go, the queen shows up and gives her the apple, which she eats before the dwarves can stop her, and she dies. And this is when something weird happens. the music swells, everything gets darker, and all the horrible CGI creatures are sad and crying. Meanwhile, the audience was cheering. Okay, that was a lie. There was no audience. But I was happy. Though, unfortunately, there is another 20 minutes of the movie left. Wait, what? There's still 20 minutes of the movie? What the fuck? Hey, just for funsies, you want to know how much of the movie was left in the original after Snow White bit the apple? Meanwhile, we still have 20 minutes here. We then go back to Jonathan, who's been locked in the dungeons with the huntsman, who he then gives a speech to about hope and the courage he found because Snow White is just so... And together they escape pretty easily. Barely an inconvenience. Jonathan then arrives at Snow White's resting place, and in a scene that was 100% added in reshoots based on how simplistic, cheap, and thrown together everything looks, Jonathan kisses her, and she does, unfortunately, wake up. Once again, the music swells triumphantly, the lights come back, the nightmare fuel seem to be happy, and yet, I couldn't feel any more hopeless. She awakes and immediately starts singing another fucking song. This might be the first musical that has made me physically roll my eyes every time a song starts playing. They're just so forgettable, there's nothing to them. Hell, even the singing doesn't sound as good as it did in the beginning of the movie. They're just there to waste my time, and that pisses me off. She tells them it's time to step up and take back their kingdom from the evil queen. And guess who's the first person to voice their agreement?
Let her try.
Yup, Dopey! He was too afraid to speak in this version. But after meeting Snow White, he has finally become brave enough to try. Isn't that just... I'm sorry, it's just too funny when this movie insinuates how great Snow White is and how they're all inspired by her, and then you remember that it's Rachel Zegler. And I just can't help but to bust out laughing. Sure, that's not the movie's fault, it's more mine, but it's part of my unique movie watching experience now. Thanks, Zeggles. Snow White heads back to her kingdom to try and inspire the villagers to take it over with her, and she does this by slowly walking back through the town as the villagers follow her wailing. Do you feel inspired? Because apparently they do. She inspired them. She inspires us all. She inspired me to revive my dead YouTube channel. Anyway, so Snow White confronts the queen about the murder of her father. I forgot to mention, but earlier when Snow bit the apple, the queen took a victory lap by saying that she had had the king killed. So that whole plot point was entirely pointless. If they had removed it, well, we don't have to guess because there's a much better version right here. We're almost done. After a weird sort of student council presidential debate between the two, the queen orders a guard to kill Snow White but stops when she says his name, saying she remembers all of them. Now, that could work and be sweet, but again, it's Rachel Zegler saying this stuff. So I can't really separate the art from the artist with this one. It's just too funny. And to top it off, in this scene, she turns to a guard and says,
Arthur.
Does that guy look like a fucking Arthur to you? And then, even better, she turns to the other guard and calls him
William.
And I believe it's pronounced Will-I-Am. So in one scene, you got the narcissistic Rachel Zegler portraying a beloved classic Disney princess who just can't pull it off. On top of the old DEI type bullshit. Because I don't think many medieval German kingdoms had the population ethnicity of Los Angeles. The last half of this movie, man, it sure took a turn, didn't it? Just whatever. All the guards choose to side with Snow White. Then when the queen tries to stab Snow White herself, the bandit dwarf shoots the knife out of her hand with a crossbow bolt. And then the 7 dwarves show up in the castle, acting all smug, whistling at her. And then the crowd cheers, and what the fuck is going on anymore? The dwarves show up, acting all smug, as if they had outwitted her or something, but it just falls flat. Same with the bandits. He is pretty much the only one that has had any lines, and yet we're meant to have this big cathartic moment with him here as he shoots the crossbow. The few times this guy has had a line, he's mentioned how his nickname has crossbow in it or something. It's as if it was meant to be a longer running joke of him having the nickname of crossbow, but only having a slingshot until the very end. It feels like we got the beginning and ending of that setup, but nothing in between because all the Bandit scenes got cut from the final movie, but they decided just to leave this one in here. So you get this weird empty feeling like we're supposed to cheer with the crowd, I think, but I don't know who this person is, but they have a crossbow now. Yay? The queen smashes the mirror, only for the magic to rebound out and infect her with some black magical goo. And it kills her. Or it sucks her into the shadow realm. I don't know. I don't care. Do you even care at this point? Anyway, all the friends show up as if they did something grand, and then they have a classic Diddy White party to celebrate, and mercifully the movie ends. What a total turd sandwich of a film that was. An utter waste of time, talent, potential, and money if I ever saw one. And a complete disaster on what not to do when trying to sell your movie to an audience. But is it the worst movie ever made like it says on IMDb? No, of course not. After all, the sequel trilogy still exists. And, you know, I don't know if I would even call it the worst Disney live-action remake, as I think Mulan still holds that title for me. But this is a close second. Ultimately, I wish Disney would learn from this and just stop with these emotionless remakes, which everyone knows are entirely just cash grabs. Maybe it worked earlier because people were hungry for that childhood nostalgia, but with each release, we all learned more and more how soulless these projects really were, and our enjoyment for them left with it. Disney is in a lose-lose scenario with remakes. Either they change too much of the story and people will get mad if it disrespects the original, but if they change too little of the story, people will also get mad that it adds nothing new. And now that the nostalgia is gone, people aren't going to go out to overpriced theaters to watch it when it'll be available on streaming in less than 2 months anyway. Just cut your losses. As for this remake itself, I don't think I've seen a movie more out of sync with itself since The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It really does feel like a collection of scenes just thrown together, sometimes at random with barely any through line between them. Snow White leaves the dwarves to meet the bandits, only to leave the bandits within seconds to go back to the dwarves for help, only for the bandits to leave, and Snow White has to say goodbye to the dwarves again. The movie basically just picking up where the main quest stopped with a little recap for the player. If we had lost those few minutes with the bandits, nothing really would have changed about the movie. It's just so blatantly obvious how much of the bandits were cut after the backlash they received early on. It just makes me think, why even keep them in this movie? Which is ironic because it's clearly not just one movie, but several that have been slapped together as coherently as possible. You can really tell in the second half of the film, the bandit scenes especially, including Jonathan, there's 7 of them in total, and only 1 has any real lines or focus of their own. They are so hilariously out of place, it's embarrassing. It's all out in the open so blatantly. And if the filmmakers themselves didn't even care about this stuff, why would they expect anyone else to? But this movie's gravest sin is its excessive waste of my time. And that I will never forgive it for. And you know what, Ziggles? If you want to actually be liked and respected, then please heed this advice. All you gotta do...
just shut the fuck up.
Thanks for watching. I'm already hard at work on my next video, which is going to be a retrospective on a Disney show from the early 2000s. That hopefully will be out in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments what you would like me to review or cover next. I also have plans to do other retrospectives for other shows and video games while I'm at it, but I felt I needed to at least give my piece on Snow White itself, because it's taken on a life of its own, and I figured I'm coming back to this channel, I might as well start it off with a bang. So appreciate you guys for listening this long. If you agree with me, cool. If you didn't agree with me, that's cool too. We all have our opinions. My philosophy is, hey, believe in whatever you want. Just don't be a dick about it. But that's the video. Till next time. Later.